When you think about mushroom pasta, you probably think about a heavy white cream sauce or a deep, rich tomato sauce. But this version of mushroom pasta uses neither of those ingredients, and it may be the best mushroom pasta you have ever tasted. Now let's get to the ingredients. As always, a detailed listing of the ingredients will be in the description below. So for this recipe, we're going to need butter. We're going to need shredded Parmesan cheese, some white wine, some salt and pepper, some green onions, and some yellow onions diced, and some chopped garlic. We're also going to need pasta. For this recipe, I have used penne, but any shaped pasta will work. Do not use long pasta. We're also going to need mushrooms. You can use any mushrooms you like, any combination of mushrooms you like. In this instance, I've used white button mushrooms and baby bellas. The mushrooms are sliced and quartered so you get a different texture in your final dish. And now it's time to cook. In a hot pan, add your oil. So allow your oil to heat up 20-30 seconds, depending upon how hot your pan was when you added your oil. And now add your mushrooms in all at once. Stir them around to get them coated with oil. If I were making sauteed mushrooms, I would say just leave them alone and don't touch them. But in this case, we want to get everything coated first. They're going to cook down for a little bit, so this is fine. So now allow them to sit for a minute or two. And as you can see, all of my oil is gone from the pan. So now I'm just going to let them sit for another 30-40 seconds just to allow some of the moisture to come out, as well as get a little additional browning. I don't want the mushrooms to burn, so at this stage I'm going to add a little additional oil. You can see the pan is really hot as I add this oil. Now I'm going to stir everything around again to allow it to get completely coated. Now I'm going to let the mushrooms sit undisturbed for another 2 minutes. And you can see all of the water that's starting to come out of the mushrooms. And now you can really see all of the water that's coming out of the mushrooms. This is what we want because it'll help enhance the browning once we get all of that mushroom out, and it will help flavor our sauce. Let the mushrooms sit undisturbed for about 3 minutes. After 3 minutes or so, give them a quick stir. You want to leave them undisturbed as much as possible to allow evaporation of the moisture in the pan. The more you stir it, the more the mushrooms get coated in the moisture and the longer it takes to evaporate, and the more it inhibits the browning. So once again, let this sit undisturbed for another 4 minutes or so until most of the moisture has evaporated. And you can see right here some of the additional browning that we're getting. So now make a well in the center so you can add your garlic and your onions. As I always do, I like to add the garlic and onions a little later to help reduce the risk of burning. Also in this case, I wanted to make sure we got the mushrooms brown and the water out of them before adding additional moisture to the pan. Let the onions and garlic sit for about 30-45 seconds to allow them to start to wilt down a little bit from the heat. Then you can stir everything around to get everything mixed together. And again, you can see some of the browning on some of these mushrooms. Stir everything together and let it sit for another 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, it's time to add the wine. Once you've added the wine, allow it to come to a boil, reduce the heat slightly, and let it simmer until most of the wine has evaporated. Should be about 4 minutes, maybe 5. And as you can see here, most of the wine is evaporated, and look at how brown this sauce is at this point. That's the flavor that we worked so hard to create by browning them so long and allowing them to sit undisturbed. Now add the salt and pepper mixture. You're not cooking the pasta in any salt, so this is the only time you're going to have to add salt to your pasta. Once that's mixed in, go ahead and add in all of your pasta. Give that a quick stir to mix. You want the pasta completely coated with the mushroom sauce at this point. Once you've stirred that around, it's time to add the water. Go ahead and add your water and stir it around to make sure that your pasta is completely mixed. You don't need the pasta completely submerged in the water, but you want it just barely covered. Bring the pasta to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, cover it, turn the heat down to a simmer. The pasta should take about 12 minutes to cook. During the cooking process, stir occasionally to make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. After about 10 minutes or so, start tasting the pasta and take it off the heat just before it reaches your desired doneness. Once you've tasted the pasta and the pasta is done to your likeness, just verify that most of the water is gone. It should have been absorbed by the pasta at this point. Now it's time to add the green onions. Put in most of the green onions. You don't have to put all of them in. Save a little for the garnish on top when the dish is complete. So once the green onions are added, go ahead and add your butter. The butter will help thicken the sauce as well as just make the pasta glisten. Make sure the butter is completely incorporated before you move on to the next step. Once you have completely incorporated the butter, it's time to add the cheese and stir that to incorporate it. Once you have finished adding the cheese and stirred that in, your dish is complete. Now that you've cooked it, it's time to serve it, eat it, and enjoy it. You can see what the addition of that butter does at the end of the recipe. That pasta just glistens because of that. And when you take a bite of this pasta, the first thing that hits you is that mushroom flavor. There's nothing hiding or overpowering the mushroom flavor like a cream sauce or a tomato sauce would. Typically, I would add some Italian seasoning to this and some basil. For some reason, I chose not to this time, and I really like this version just with the salt and the pepper. It just has a really fresh, clean taste. I think you'll really like this, and you won't miss the cream sauce or the tomato sauce. This is actually one of my favorite recipes to eat. Thank you for watching. Please check out our next video so we can continue our culinary journey together.